All right, what's up, New York? How's it going? I'm Ross Facatoro, bringing you guys the 66th episode of the Apples to Apples podcast. It's my first episode post trade deadline in Major League Baseball, and we got a hell of a lot of trades to talk about. Mostly players coming in to both the Bronx and Queens, as both teams obviously in positions to buy. The Mets back and forth with the division lead with Philly and a Yankee team that was just leading their division a few weeks ago, but has all of a sudden found themselves about, six or seven, no pun intended, games back behind Toronto, and now all of a sudden Boston's ahead of them as well. But nonetheless, both teams that are in postseason spots currently, and barring some disastrous free fall to cap off their seasons, are most likely going to be playoff teams. And to that point, I mean, the free falls feel a lot more possible than they did a few weeks ago. And I'd really want to say, one team more than the other, but it feels like both teams are equally as shit right now. And we'll get into the trades in a little bit. I got them on the ticker down here, all the players that were brought into both the Yankees and the Mets. But it's really, we got to talk about like the legitimate play as of late. And but it's twofold, bro. Both of these teams. We'll start off with the Mets. I'm a Met fan. Obviously, we'll start off with the Amazings. So a team that's lost, I think, now 8 of their last 9. And I'm recording this around a few hours after they got one hit, and that one hit coming with one out in the ninth inning on a solo shot off the bat of Juan Soto. And it was Gavin Williams throwing the no-hitter. Not a total no-name, but, he's no Corey Kluber neither. You know what I'm saying? So regardless, this is an offense. Bro, you're lucky if they put up 3 runs in a game. It's a joke at this point, right? And you got the self-anointed Fab Four, headlining this lineup. All the big bucks put into Soto and Lindor alone, and Alonso and Nimmo. They're no, bargain neither. And they're giving you absolutely nothing when it comes to at the plate production. Nothing. I mean, I think, as of late, like a recent sample size, I think Lindor's got the best average of the 4, and he's batting like 220. Soto and Alonso are batting sub 200. Nimmo's around 200. They're giving you absolutely nothing. And I just brought up the whole Fab Four nickname that Steve Cohen himself tweeted out after that one game in Baltimore, like where they all produced in the same game. It took early July for that to happen. All 4 of them to produce at the first game happened for the first time in early July. And since that game, we haven't seen an iota of what they did in that one game. You would think that game was like Game 7 of the World Series the way people talk them up. And these are legit names. I mean, Juan Soto, forget it. Juan Soto is 25, 26 years old, and he's already got a resume somewhat good enough to make it a case for him to be a Hall of Famer. He would legitimately have a better chance than not of walking into Cooperstown if he retired today. Francisco Lindor, I mean, is a perennial top 3, top 5 shortstop in the league. 5-tool player. He's the epitome of it. And I know the first couple years in Queens for him were a few to forget. He's been on the come up, and it feels like there's been certain low points with his production that you look at it being on the trendier side of things. You look at the slow starts in March and April and May, and you say, this is customary for him. You got to give him the benefit of the doubt because this is something he was doing way back when he was in Cleveland. Maybe that's not even so much him being, a New York athlete no more. Maybe this is just a problem with him in general as a major league player, that you got to give him the first month and a half, 2 months to, get things going, get things on the road. And for the first time, maybe ever, but definitely here as a Met, he got going right away. And we're saying, all right, you know what? Maybe the second half of last year and what he was able to do in game 161 and what he was able to do in the postseason, the Grand Slam against the Phillies and whatnot, maybe that got him going for good. Maybe we don't have to worry about the slow starts early on at all. Regardless, we don't have to worry about the slumps. And you just see him recently coming off going, 0 for 32, 0 for 33. It wound up being he was breathing down the neck of I'm blanking on who had the record. For the longest hitless drought in Met history. And you're talking about all these names in Mets history, guys coming in to play their final season as a Met. Just flat out awful Met play, signings, acquisitions that don't pan out. Jason Bay's like the headliner of it. All these names. And the future, not future, franchise and the franchise shortstop, the face of the franchise pretty much probably still is, even with Soto coming in this year. And he is like second or third all time in Met history in that Dubas record. Now, he didn't wind up breaking it, but I mean, the fact that he's even close to the top of that list, I mean, these are issues that we thought were left in the past with this guy. Lindor, I'm talking about. You still see him. He's a minute and a half late on a strike three fastball. He's still swinging at shit that barely even crosses the plate. And he's going to wind up with solid numbers. He's probably going to wind up with 25-something homers. He's going to be stealing the bags. He had a 30-30 year last year. When it's all said and done, he'll probably have a 30-30 season or close to it this year as well, just naturally. But I mean, like the average numbers, as you go game by game this season, it's just you see more over games than not. And that is a goddamn problem with this guy that we thought was something we didn't have to worry about anymore. Juan Soto's the next one in line. Juan Soto, you pay him $51 million on the dollar. This guy's numbers, same thing. The numbers are probably going to look all pretty and beautiful when it's all said and done this season. He's going to have the OPS in the 800s, maybe even higher. I heard Gary Cohen on the call today said a bad season for Juan Soto is an all-star season for anybody else, and he's not wrong. You're making $51 fucking million, and I got to hear a stat that he's got 26 homers on the year. 20 out of those 26, 20 of those 26 home runs are solo home runs. And the other 6 are 2-run homers. He doesn't have a single homer with 2 or 3 guys on base. He doesn't have a grand slam. He doesn't have a 3-run homer. That is absurd. We're in August. And 80% of his homers so far this year are solo shots. And that's not even talking about how many of those are low leverage or completely meaningless. Completely fucking meaningless. Today's home run, completely fucking meaningless. So what if you get no hit? Honest to God, I'd probably rather them get no hit. Because something's got to be the wake-up call. Something's got to be the spark under their ass. And you see Soto laughing. You see Lindor grounding into double bases loaded, 1 out, grounding into a double play. He's running a first. He's laughing, striking out, high leverage spot. He's laughing. Soto rounding the bases, breaking up the no-hitter with 2 more outs to go. In the bottom of the 9th, you're down 4-zip. You're trying to avoid the sweep. You already know you're dead in the water at that point, so you know you're going to get swept. You're in a game trying to avoid the sweep. 2 outs away from a no-hitter. You hit a meaningless fucking home run, and Soto's trying not to laugh around in the bases. And I'm not trying to come off as like a boomer and the old, dogging it to first base, bench him, trade the fucking guy, DFA him. I'm not trying to come off as one of those, but bro, when every missed opportunity with runners on base or every Dubas spot where the lights are bright and just the same old shit rears its ugly head like today. Obviously the offensive numbers are a problem, but just when you think you're at rock bottom, it gets worse and worse. I'm surprised they weren't getting a perfect game thrown on them. I think Nimmo had 2 walks. Otherwise, it would have been. They had nothing going for them, bro. They had like five balls left the infield. Everything was either a ground out or a strikeout. I think they flashed the stat. And when you got Pete is like the one, like the saving grace of the 4. He's just coming off a streak. He went like 4 for 30. This is a guy, he's now 2 homers away. He's 1 away from tying Darryl, 2 from passing him for the all-time Met home run record. My God, at this rate, he might not hit it until late September. If we're lucky, if he hits it this year. And then who knows the looming question mark if he's here long term. That he wants to be a Met for life? Does Cohen want him for life? And now here's the whole thing. If you're talking about this Fab Four, well, he's a pretty damn important part of this so-called Fab Four that's worthy of a nickname. So now you're telling me if you don't bring him back, then this Fab Four was just a nothing burger from the start, and you could live without him. You know what I'm trying to say? So what? You let him go, and now what? It's a Fab Three because you broke it up. You broke it up, Mr. Cohen. You broke up this so-called elaborate core four that couldn't hit a fucking beach ball with a runner on base or in general. They can't hit. Nobody can hit. And I'm going to segue into the deadline now. So, because to kind of connect all this. Mets deadline, you bring in Tyler Rogers from the San Francisco Giants, submarine throwing righty reliever. Pretty much been a setup guy his whole career. He's got great numbers. Obviously, the funky delivery comes up big. Not really throwing gas, but he's got solid stuff. You gave up a haul for him. Everybody was talking about it. Even Passan said it. You gave up Drew Gilbert, who was being talked about to acquire like Luis Robert, Garrett Crochet, among other perennial all-stars. You wind up getting a fucking setup reliever for him, but who's a good pitcher. Don't get me wrong, but when you compare him to perennial all-stars, it's like, big-time bats and rotation-altering starters, and you wind up getting a setup man. I thought it was underwhelming, but regardless, and I guess to play devil's advocate, somebody who cries so much about overanalyzing, overprotecting prospects, to be aggressive and give up a guy. Obviously how they got Drew Gilbert was a top prospect in Houston's system. They got him in the Verlander trade. You know what? I'm always talking about not overprotecting the prospects. You gave one up here. I guess it was a hefty price tag to pay. So it was Drew Gilbert, Blade Tidwell. We saw in a couple spots. Wasn't anything to really, go crazy over. And Jose Buto, who was actually pitched in the, wound up pitching, coming back to Citi Field, first series with the Giants at Citi Field, pitched against the Mets. I think actually got blown up at a spot along with another former Met, Joey Lucchesi. I'm getting carried away. They got Ryan Helsley from the St. Louis Cardinals. Has been their closer last couple years. He's got the Hells Bells intro. Kind of compare that to Narco. He's got a filthy arsenal, fastball, curveball combo. Pretty damn good setup man to pair along with Rogers, who had been a closer all these years. And obviously you're not going to take Diaz out of that spot. I love that trade. They gave up that kid Baez. Other than that, I felt like they got the better player in Helsley and gave up less for him compared to what they gave up for Rogers. All good there. They also brought in Gregory Soto like a week earlier. Gas throwing lefty. Might come up big, and I was kidding around. And I said, leave it to the Mets. They trade for the two worst Sotos in the league. There's two Sotos in the league. So, but he's been solid so far. They've all been pretty much solid. And I got to see the thing online. It's some bullshit about like the super pen. It's unbelievable with this team. Everything's got to be a gimmick, a nickname, you name it. We can't just have production without something being some gimmick, some like storyline. Everything's got to have a name or a running gag. I mean, I'm not trying to say like a boomer, bro, but this is the shit that you're okay with while they're winning. But all of a sudden, when they start losing, you don't want to hear this shit. You don't. Yeah, this is like last year. We didn't give a shit about the OMG and the Grimace and the Glizzy Izzy because they were winning. The Hawk Tua girl throwing out the first pitch, they were winning. We didn't give two fucks because they were winning along with it. But all of a sudden, when you're getting shut out, you're getting no hit. You're losing games in the fifth, sixth inning because you're not going to put up the slightest bit of fight in the world. You go down 1-0, you feel like the game's over. All of a sudden, we don't want to see this shit. And all right, I won't say me. I don't like, and I feel like I'm not alone. I don't want to see this shit. The games are all right when they're winning, but when you're losing, bro, and it's all about everybody's fucking laughing, the Pink Pony Club, I feel like it gets tiring. And I don't think I'm alone with that. You go on Mets Twitter, I don't think I'm alone with that. They get one bat. This dynamic offense, they get one bat. Cedric Mullins spent his whole career lefty speedster bat with Baltimore. Who had solid numbers. He was an all-star in 2021, has kind of declined a little bit, by the year. But I'll say this. kind of to, tag along with Baltimore. Baltimore completely sold off. They sold off Soto and Mullins, sent them to Queens. They sold off Laureano and O'Hearn. They sent them to San Diego. They sent Sir Anthony Dominguez to the Blue Jays. So they cleared shot. The Orioles, they threw in the towel. They said this year just ain't the year. And so they sent a couple pieces to the Mets, obviously Soto, Mullins, but a lot of people were talking about we were supposed to get an outfielder from the Orioles. We just got the wrong one. While Cedric Mullins is like 1 for 12 so far here in Queens, Ramon Laureano's been like tearing the cover off the ball. But I'm not going to sit here and lose sleep, bro, because I guarantee you with this team, if we did trade for Laureano and San Diego got Mullins, I guarantee you it would be the same numbers with different players. It would be completely reversed. Laureano would be 0 for so far, and Mullins would have like 5 homers with the Padres. I guarantee you, bro. I guarantee you, because at the end of the day, I don't think it's the name on the back of the jersey. I think it don't matter what name you got on the back of the jersey, name and number, as long as you got that METS along the front in orange and blue, every player you bring here is going to morph into a sub 200 hitter. You dig up Babe Ruth to throw him in this lineup, he's batting under 200. I guarantee you. Because you know what? I remember pulling up clips of Juan Soto hitting the ALCS clinching homer to dead center field and saying, man, this guy would look good in a Met jersey. I remember pulling up all the clips of him batting in front of Aaron Judge and the pizzazz and the Soto shuffle and all that. Now I'm lucky if I see SNY Mets, pinpoint him doing it once every 2 weeks. Because every time he does it now, it's its own designated tweet, but it felt like he was doing it every other pitch with the Yanks. This same guy, I remember saying, man, he would look great in a Met jersey, and look what we got now. A guy, low leverage spot, my buddy Donnie online, he calls him Juan Solo. Juan Solo, you're our only hope. Low leverage, nobody on base, no problem. The ball's fine in the seats, but you got multiple guys on base, 2 outs, tie game, down 1, up 1. He's chasing at everything. He's popping up. He's rolling over to second. This isn't the guy I remember reposted clips of in the winter. So that's why I'm not going to lose sleep over Laureano and Mullins, because it would have flip-flopped. I guarantee you it would have flip-flopped. But same with O'Hearn. A lot of people were saying we should have gotten Ryan O'Hearn too when they both went to San Diego. I guarantee you it would have been the same. Or it would have been the same production in San Diego and the lack of it here in New York. So I don't care, man. I feel like whoever we brought in would have been a disappointment, and we would have just been talking about Mullins or whoever that we did acquire in reality and saying, why didn't we bring them in? Kind of like Winker wound up being solid last year when he was on the field, because now he's not on the field at all. And obviously the Dubas 22 deadline. And obviously 23 we didn't buy. We sold off Scherzer, Verlander, all that. But 22, the prior 2 years we bought prior to this year, Winker being the only bat last year, and then the Darren Ruff, Daniel Vogelbach debacle of 2022, the rest was history. And there were names, Josh Bell we should have brought in, et cetera, et cetera. And it wound up being a disaster. Tyler Naquin was the other one. It wound up being a total disaster. So I don't know, man. I don't know if we bring in Ramon Laureano all of a sudden he's the difference maker. Because everybody else to pick up a bat this year has been a joke, been underwhelming. I won't say everybody's been a joke, but everybody's been underwhelming for sure. I can't think of one person that hasn't been. Like, legitimately. Is there one person to pick up a bat? I guess Hayden Senger, if we got to pick somebody, right? I mean, you look at, the baby Mets. Who's the best one of them? Ronnie Mauricio is probably the best one, and he's an average MLB player. Legitimately, all his numbers are average. His fielding's average. He's fast. That's about it. Acuna's fast. He's in and out of AAA. And one last thing on this note, on the pitching side of things, because we're talking about they brought in Rogers, Helsley, Soto to the bullpen. Obviously, the super pen now with Stanek and Diaz and Reed Garrett. The rotation's a disarray. It's Senga when he's healthy. It's Manaea coming off, the injury. David Peterson, you feel like you got something there. And then who else? Clay Holmes had a solid start his last go-around, but you're talking about a month and a half, 2 month sample size where he was the furthest thing from that. And all of a sudden, Frankie Montas is like the current universal punching bag of the fan base. And I gave Frankie Montas the benefit of the doubt as long as I could, but he just ain't it. And one thing that scares me with this year's David Sturridge is the David Stearns of last year would have had his ass designated for assignment, no ends, ifs, or buts. And we're talking about a David Stearns last year. He did that with Joey Wendell. He did that with Adrian Hauser. He did that with Jake Diekman. He did that with Zach Short. If your ass wasn't performing, you were gone. And there was no doubt about it. The David Stearns of this year, Joey Wendell would still be playing third, and Adrian Hauser would be our number 3 starter. The way things have been going right now, because guy, name after name, Montas is the epitome of it. It's Ryan Stanek, I feel like, is a postseason riser, but there's no denying that his regular season numbers are shit. And he comes into every high leverage spot, feels like, right? And Montas is the epitome of it. And I was just saying, I was giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm looking at a guy who, with Severino last year, I felt like I hated the move more than anybody right out of the gates, and I could not have been more wrong. Hand up, I could not have been more wrong about Luis Severino. I remember I got that notification. It was November 23. It was like one of the first sightings. I said, what the fuck are they doing? This is a guy, Luis Severino. He was hurt every year. Even when he was in his prime, he was always hurt. And in the final few years with the Yankees, he was lucky if he didn't get booed off the bat in the second or third inning. I said, what the fuck are they doing? Not only bringing him in, feel like running into the offseason to make sure he was in the rotation. I said, what's with the urgency to bring this guy in? And he wound up being awesome. He had peaks and valleys, but he wound up being great. He was closer to prime Severino with the baby bombers and all that than he was in the final few years. And to everybody that said it was a low-risk, high-reward move, they couldn't have been more spot on. When I see them give similar AAV to Frankie Montas this year, and I'm saying Frankie Montas is kind of the opposite. Not obviously his peak is nowhere near the peak of Sevy. I know Montas was at 21. He was an all-star, kind of same as Mullins. He had that 1 year, 2021. He was an all-star. And other than that, I mean, it's been good, not great. But I'm saying the difference between Sevy and with Montas is Montas was on an upward trajectory. The final few years with the A's were rough. Goes to the Yankees, complete mess. He goes to Cincinnati and then gets traded to Milwaukee. And they saw him in the postseason. He wasn't half bad. He wasn't getting booed off the mound in the third, fourth inning. And they got similar AV. All right, I said, oh, this guy's on an upward trajectory. Stearns saw something he liked. And I can't knock Stearns because of how much I knocked him with Severino. And Manaea was the other one. Manaea got outcasted to being a long reliever in San Francisco, and look what he wound up being. So I said, until this doesn't work out, I'm not going to knock the Stearns philosophy. Well, this year it stopped working out. Montas is complete dog shit. Griffin Canning was up and down before he got hurt. He started off awesome. He was completely downhill right up, leading up to the Achilles injury. Clay Holmes has been more down than up as of late. He's another one. And to the point of Montas, you're talking about pretty much a free agency trade where we brought in Montas from Milwaukee, and Milwaukee brings in Jose Quintana from our staff. And we're not talking about a Jose Quintana that got plunked off, free agency in November, December. He wasn't one of the first names off the hot stove. No. He was still there in February, March. The stove was damn near cooling off, and his name was still atop that list. They could have brought him in, no problem. And this is what probably, if you got to make the rounds of every pitcher on the staff in October, he is probably, you can make a case, was their best pitcher in October. And he was sitting there for the taking. You say Severino got plunked by Oakland right away, fine. It felt like he was a foregone conclusion. He was going to cash off the one-and-done year and go get paid somewhere else. And he's been a complete shit show with Sacramento. He hates the stadium. He's fallen down. His numbers are shit. And he's their highest paying contract in franchise history, talking about the Athletics. That's fine. Jose Quintana was sitting there in March, February, March. He was still there. And Milwaukee brought him in, and he has been great in that staff with the best record of baseball. That is the Milwaukee Brewers. Meanwhile, we took Montas from Milwaukee, and he has been a complete no-show. No-show. He had a solid first 2 starts. Then there was something saying he was tipping his pitches or something in Pittsburgh. He said, all right, fine. If that's what it is, he caught on to what the issue was. No harm, no foul, move on. And he has been shit start after start after start ever since. He got bombed in San Diego. He had the 5-1 lead off the Mark Vientos grand slam and completely pissed it away in the bottom half of the inning. And all of a sudden now he's like one of the few things the whole fan base agrees on. He has to go, and Stearns won't pull the trigger. And like I said, the Stearns of last year probably does pull the trigger. I don't know what changed. And on that same note, I'm seeing the names Brandon Sproat, Jonah Tong, Nolan McLean. Oh, they're lighting it up at Syracuse. You know who else I heard was lighting it up at Syracuse? Francisco Alvarez, Brett Beatty, Ronnie Mauricio, Mark Vientos. Every time they're with the Syracuse Mets, I hear how they went 3 for 4 with 2 homers and 5 RBIs. And yet when they come here to Queens, they're batting 7, 8, 9, and they go a combined 0 for 12. And I get pitcher hitter. It's different. I feel like, you look at our track record, we've developed more pitchers and hitters, but still the fact of the matter is Syracuse Mets are some of the all-time greats number-wise, and they come here and they play like a bunch of fucking janitors. So I don't know what, if the numbers I see Brandon Sproat and Nolan McLean putting up at Syracuse, you got to take that with a grain of salt, because the bottom third of our lineup, they tear the cover off the ball when they're up in upstate New York. And they come here and they're borderline unplayable. And it even looked like Alvarez, he spent about a month up there. He came back. He had a clutch double the first game. He had a homer the next game. And he's done jack shit ever since. And I don't know if that boils down to Eric Chavez, to Jeremy Barnes, who everybody and their mother's calling for their heads online, and most likely deservedly so. I don't know how much of a role a hitting coach and a base running coach plays for on a team anymore. I don't. Because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, those batters got to go, pick up a bat, go up to the plate, and fucking hit the ball. It's as simple as that. But at the same time, we know that them on the team, the offense is as lethargic as could be. It's not going to work with it's not working with them here on the roster, on the payroll. So even if it's not going to it's not going to help the numbers by any means, I don't know how it could hurt, because what is currently going on with this lineup, it's like no joke, no hyperbole, the worst lineup in baseball production-wise. No joke. Eric Chavez, Jeremy Barnes, I don't know what good comes from bringing them around. Like I said, I don't know if the corner's going to turn the second they leave, but I don't know how it could hurt. They flashed up today. They're I think it was the 7th or 8th inning. It don't matter. They were getting no hit. They're in the middle getting no hit. And they flashed to Eric Chavez, completely fucking clueless, and Jeremy Barnes picking his nose and eating his damn boogers. They're getting no hit, and the hitting coaches are picking their nose and eating their damn boogers. That's the who's calling the shots with the approach to hitting on this team. And there's that report, Chavez saying like the key to hitting is hitting opposite field singles. This is bullshit. I mean, something me, you, and everybody else online could come up with. Why don't they pay us? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know. I don't know if he's in Soto's ear and Alvarez's ear and Lindor's ear and like discouraging them. Maybe Alvarez, but Soto, Lindor, they're vets. Alonso, Nimmo, they're vets. They don't need some fucking, washed up, has been failed MLB player he's a hitting coach now because he wound up being nothing in his playing career. They don't need someone like that telling them how to hit. They know how to hit. So I don't fucking know what the answer is to that. And I'm not saying if they fire Chavez and Barnes, which they won't, by the way. We know they won't. So there's no reason to even argue it. But let's say they do. I'm not saying it's going to be the Midas touch, and the second they're out the door, the Fab Four is hitting again. I'm not saying that. But maybe for some of these guys like Alvarez and Beatty and Mauricio, maybe he is getting in their ear and he's got their fucking hitting approach in a rut. But something's got to change, bro. Something's got to change. When you're talking about a game where you put up 2 runs, yay amount of hits, and you're bitching about the hitting then, and you followed up with getting 1 hit, 2 outs away from getting no hit, to about 2 walks away from getting perfect gamed, and you're telling me you're just going to sit on your hands? I mean, there's got to be an answer somewhere. I don't even think it's Mendoza, because I don't know what he does. The lineup's produced by the front office. I feel like the majority of the bullpen decisions are manufactured by the front office, so I don't know what he's there to do. For better or worse, I don't know what role he plays. And I feel like he's a good enough voice in the clubhouse. I feel like John Gibbons is a good enough voice in the clubhouse. They're not going to be, Tito Francona or Bruce Bochy, but not many are. Not many are. And I don't think the answer is bringing in a Beltran or somebody like that either. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not paid to know what the answer is. Somebody in that clubhouse or that front office has got to get their shit together, because riding the waves of an offense that's putting up 2 runs and 5 hits on a good day is not going to cut it, bro. It's just not. And the pitching's not good enough to carry the load like it was last year. It's just not. You got a 3-man rotation by committee. And even then, you don't have a bona fide ace. Every other team in the NL has a bona fide ace. The Dodgers got Yamamoto. The Padres got, I mean, they really don't have one either. But, I mean, the Brewers, and Mizorowski comes back. Forget it. Philly. They got Wheeler. They got Sanchez is good enough to be an ace for any other team. Who's our ace? Senga? Who could what? Go 3-4 innings because of how fragile he is? Manaya, they got him on the pitch count. You got an offense that couldn't hit a damn beach ball, and you got a 3-man rotation that's not good enough to carry the weight. I don't know how this team goes anywhere. The lone saving grace is the postseason is a crapshoot, because that's what they lived and died by last year, and they rode Aladdin's magic carpet ride to Game 6 of the NLCS. And all the OMG and Martinez and Iglesias later, I don't know who the fuck on this team right now is going to be that spark plug that Iglesias and JD wound up being last year. I don't think anyone's even close to playing that role. Like, just completely took all the energy and pomp and circumstance out of this year's team. This is not an enjoyable team to watch. They're not a winning. They're a winning team by default. So the team they were up what 20, 25 games over 500. What are they now? 12. It's stupid, man. They're now 3.5 games back of Philly in the NL East. A week ago, they were back and forth. Tug of war. Now they're 3.5 games back. And honestly, bro, you call me crazy. The Marlins are no joke. Kyle Stowers and Wagaman and Augustin Ramirez, what they've been doing. Forget the Braves. The Marlins are not breathing down their necks, but I mean, they're closer than their objects are closer than they appear, whatever the hell the rearview mirror says. Marlins are not that as far away as people think. Do I think they're going to pass the Mets? I mean, knock on wood, no. But the way the Mets are playing now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Nationals passed them, because this is not a winning team. And like I said, Chavez and Barnes, let's say they fire him. I don't think the switch is going to get flipped right away. But how in your right mind you don't do anything is absurd to me. So Cohen, Stearns, Mendoza, they got to wake the hell up and realize that the way things are currently constructed and currently operating, they are going nowhere. Nowhere. And I wish today was the no-hitter I wish today was a no-hitter to be that wake-up call. But damn, if a one-hitter's got to be the wake-up call too, so be it. Lose 8 of your last 9. You had the 7-game winning streak. You had the Pablo Sanchez and Elmo and all this. You were trying to pull the grimace and OMG of last year. You had the 7-game winning streak. You had something to build off of, and zoom, you went right back to falling flat on your face and right back to square one. Ever since that June 13th game, Friday the 13th, the Paul Blackburn 5th inning against Tampa, everything has hit all the shit's hit the fan since then. So I went way too long on that tangent, but I had to get that off my chest. It's Mets gonna bet. That's what it is. And I'll clip these up. I'll post them. Clips are online. We got to get to the Yankees really quick because they're free falling too. Call it Tom Petty, both teams free falling. Yankees, trade deadline acquisition galore as well. Bullpen focus as well. Bringing Camilo Doval from the Giants, David Bednar from the Pirates, Jake Bird, along with Ryan McMahon, third baseman from the Rockies, bringing Ahmed Rosario as a utility for Washington. Another utility as well, and Jose Caballero from the Tampa Bay Rays. And kind of, storybook ending. First game where Bird, Bednar, and Doval all pitch in the Yankee uniform, talking about the weight of the pinstripes being too heavy and all those notions. Kind of came into fruition. Their first game, they all contributed to giving up 7 runs combined. Doval lost the game in the 9th, but Bednar gave up 3 runs. Jake Bird gave up a grand slam, I think, to the first 4 batters he saw. I think he like loaded the bases, gave up a grand slam to Stowers, I think it was. I forgot who it was, but case in point, all 3 highly coveted trade deadline acquisitions just completely imploded. And the icing on the cake was Caballero in right field, just completely misplayed a ball, what was going to be like a routine single or right. Caballero gets past him. It's running 2 runs, and then Xavier Edwards scored on a little like bunt single. Or Edwards scored from third, came home, was the winning run on a bunt single, one of the fastest guys in the league. I mean, any contact, running on contact, the guy's going to come in to score. They wound up getting swept by the Marlins. They lost the series to the Rangers. They won the final game, but they drop a series to Texas, who they're like back and forth with in the wild card race. They're losing left to right. They got swept to Toronto. I forgot who they got. Houston coming up. Could wind up being or is going to be a huge matchup. That's just another team that's free falling, man. I mean, Devin Williams lost both of the 2 of the 3 losses, or 2 of the 3 games they lost in Texas. He gave up the game tying solo shot from Jock Peterson, who's like batting like 150 on the year. And they wound up losing that in extras. And then the other night, he lost the game as well. And this is talk about a guy who, Luke Weaver having a down year to his standard so far, in his tenure with the Yankees. You bring in Devin Williams, and there's all this talk how the Pete Alonso homer in the wild card game kind of broke him. He was tipping the pitches with the airbender, and he hasn't really been the same at all, aside from about a couple solid weeks in June, July. But to start the year off, he was an automatic blown save, and as of late, he has been rocky more often than not. And with all these relievers they brought in, I mean, Bednar had a 5-out save today. He got blown up at his first appearance, but so far he's been solid. I mean, Jake Bird got sent down. They acquired him just to send him down. But Bednar has been solid. Duvall's been solid, and it kind of makes up for the Weaver-Williams connection that going into the year you thought was going to be your Weaver 8th inning, Williams 9th inning plan, and it's been the furthest thing from that. Williams is borderline unusable, and it feels like with all these pitchers they brought in, most of which, if not, I think all 3 of them have multiple years remaining on their contracts, it feels like it's all but a foregone conclusion that Devin Williams is a one and done in the Bronx. And when you're still bringing him up in these high leverage situations and he's got nothing going, at what point do you realize maybe he's just completely unusable in general? And you're even talking about an offense that, fundamentally can't get anything right. There was the play against Miami where Jazz Chisholm, it was a pop out to second, and for I don't know what the hell was going on in his head, but he gets doubled up at first. It wasn't even like he was tagging up. He just fell asleep in between first and second. You had the play where Giancarlo, hard hit single, and by the time the ball was at Stowers' glove, Grisham barely even rounded third, and they sent him home for whatever reason. He walked into an out by like 90 feet or 45 feet. Regardless, the guy, it was a stand up out at the plate at a ball on a play where the ball was in his glove by the time Grisham even rounded third base. So fundamental shit like that. I mean, you got defensive miscues like Bellinger dropping the routine fly out. Toronto lost it in the lights. Dominguez is still a problem in the field. You just got Aaron Judge back, and it feels like, it feels like it's unroutine to not have him homer in every other at bat, but at the same time, you're not seeing the production from him. Just kind of feels like, along with the Mets, everything that can go wrong is going wrong for the Yankees as well. But the difference is one team got one hit today, the other team got a much needed win. So the Yankees got 3 coming up against the Astros. Mets got 3 coming up in Milwaukee. Saying these are must-win series for both teams doesn't do it justice. Like I said, I think the Yankees are about 6 games back of the Blue Jays, about a game behind the Red Sox in the wild card race. And for the Mets, currently 3 games back of Philly, who just picked up about a game or 2 against Baltimore, speaking on the Phillies. So I don't want this episode to go too long. I feel like I got everything off. And one last thing, talking about third base sends, a big part of what lost the Mets. The first game of this 3-game set against Cleveland was the no send with Taylor rounding third, keeping him at third on a ball that was not only way in the corner of right field, the right fielder wound up dropping it, and there was no guarantee they were going to make the connection right to home without dropping the ball. They hold Taylor off. And at that same token, Fab Four everything. You get a goddamn base hit with a runner on. God forbid you score a run without using a productive out, a sac fly, or a force out. Just get a single up the middle. But every run they score with runners on is a sac fly, a force out. But that's neither here nor there. I feel like I'm rambling at this point. Thank you guys for listening. You know the deal. Following the socials, listening on Spotify, watch it on YouTube. You know the deal with our friends at SeatGeek. Shout out to them. Dog days of summer, you want to catch a ball game, catch a concert, any event you might think of, use my promo code apples to apples at checkout. We'll save you 20% off your first purchase using SeatGeek. Link will be in the description down below. But with that said, guys, thank you for listening and watching and all that. And I will see you next time on the Apples to Apples podcast. See you guys.